Coming to you live from the heart of Zambia, Lusaka City, this is Camnet TV News. Today, Thursday, the 10th of April in the year 2025. Let's now take a look at the headlines. NAWAKWI'S body jets in, burial scheduled for Friday. Let's trade among ourselves to develop, HH tells African countries. YANGO conditions of service still unsustainable, taxi drivers cry out. In international news this evening, first payments made to white farmers affected by land reforms in Zimbabwe. And in sports this evening, CHIPOLOPOLO under-17 in Morocco in readiness for their match against Burkina Faso this evening. Join us for more exciting stories after this break. Join us this Friday on the ministry. Host Bishop Billy Lubansa from Flaming Fire Ministries, Kabwe. Guest Apostle Derek Mutungu. Topic: Who reached Africa and how can it really be free? Time 20-45 hours. Only on Camnet TV. To present Camnet TV main news in detail, I'm Tapelo Joe Smata. President Hakainde Hichilema has urged African nations to enhance trade amongst themselves to ensure development on the continent. Speaking at the 2025 Land-Linked Zambia Conference at the Sierra Resort in Chongwe, the president says there is need to invest in non-stop border posts to guarantee the continuous flow of trade and businesses within Africa. Mr. Hichilema says African countries must rewrite history and build intra-trade and investment amongst themselves. The conference also saw the signing of 2 agreements between Zambia and Angola for the development of the Lobito Corridor project and a bilateral agreement on aviation between the 2 countries.
Was wrong for many years. The narrative is right as we repositioned our country. I asked my colleagues in the side room there, I said, can someone tell me the length, the distance of Switzerland's access to the sea? I asked those colleagues, I said, how long is Switzerland's coastline? They looked at each other and they were smiling. I said, no, just give me the answer. I'm just asking a simple question. Maybe you know the distance that Switzerland has to a coastline, or its own coastline. None, isn't it? It's land-linked. Why is it host to some of the world's greatest businesses? It's positioning. Why is Mercuria operating from there? $400+ billion turnover business, and many other businesses. Why are the banks in Switzerland? It's a positioning that the Swiss people realized they needed to market their country years back. And we thank the generation of the Swiss community leaders out there. That's what we are doing here. And this is not to benefit Zambia alone. This is to benefit Tanzania. My dear sister, President Suluhu Hassan, we talk about this every now and then. To benefit Namibia, Walvis Bay. To benefit Angola, Bondi.
The body of the late Forum for Democracy and Development leader Edith NAWAKWI has arrived in the country, ready for burial tomorrow. The body was received by various political leaders and government officials, relatives and party members. And politician Savoy Imboela says she will remember Miss NAWAKWI as a courageous woman that fought till her last breath to ensure that the voice of the voiceless are heard. The first finance minister will be laid to rest tomorrow. Here's a report.
Of political party leaders and members this afternoon made their way to the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport to receive the body of late Forum for Democracy Development FDD President Edith NAWAKWI. Miss Edith NAWAKWI died in the early hours of Monday, aged 66, and was Zambia's first female finance minister and one of the first women to form a political party. And speaking to Camnet News, politician Savoy Imboila has described the late as a strong pillar of democracy and women in politics. However, she noted that government stressed Ms. NAWAKWI to the core despite knowing her medical condition.
Have been sick, but the government really stressed her. They were so determined to jail her. And we should remember, as we do our politics, and as much as we are politicians, we are human beings. You know, this life, this body that we have here is a temporal thing. You know, there's a limit to which the body could take, the kind of stress that the body could take. So let's remember as politicians to be human, you know, let's remember to be human. And with that also, I urge the government to ensure that they release GBM. He has a constitutional right to be released on bail pending appeal. So they should do that. They should not get the judicial system and use it to fix political opponents. It shouldn't be like that. If Madam NAWAKWI was not as stressed as she was, she would be alive today. That's a fact. With Madam NAWAKWI last year, beginning of this year, she was strong as always, but the amount of stress that was put on her was just too much. But I'd like to urge the Zambians out there to remember the kind of strength and the kind of vigor, the kind of passion, the kind of determination that she had as a political leader and continue her legacy, especially the women out there. Politics are very toxic, they're very hostile for women, but she did it. You know, a good number of us are doing it, and as more women as possible have to take up this mantle and ensure that we take up our rightful place as women in politics in the country.
The grief of the loss of her life was felt in the faces of all in attendance as the body made its way to the morgue in preparation for burial. Cherish Sibote for Camnet News in Lusaka.
Agriculture Smart expert Dr. Bulaya has called on farmers to remain vigilant as they begin harvesting their crops. Dr. Bulaya says that many farmers who planted early are now reaping cereals and legumes, but should pay close attention to weather forecasts to avoid losses from unexpected rainfall. He adds that with climate change causing unpredictable weather patterns, farmers should take necessary precautions to safeguard their yields. Dr. Bulaya emphasized the importance of proper storage practices to protect harvested crops. He advised farmers to use well-ventilated storage systems to prevent spoilage due to sudden weather changes.
Climate change and uncertainties in weather patterns, we are experiencing, challenges, especially in terms of storage of the crops that have been harvested, this time around. I know of farmers that planted early and consistent with, practices of climate smart agriculture that encourages farmers to engage into early land preparation, and also this fosters to early harvesting in terms of cereals and also legumes. Cautious and always depend, on the advice, from the meteorology department, which is very pertinent in this time around because of challenges of uncertainties in weather patterns. In as much as farmers are harvesting, it is very important to ensure that you have a storage, of facility which is well ventilated. In case of heavy downpour of rains, not knowing how long it can take, this could damage, the crop which is already harvested. Let's look at the challenges we've faced in the past, and this is an opportunity we have as a country to recover, in terms of food insecurity. And in this case, it is important that we secure our yields or our harvest, by ensuring that in case it rains, we have where we can keep.
The Advocates for Democratic Governance Foundation, ADEG, has cautioned members of parliament to be mindful of their public statements about government officials to avoid legal consequences. Speaking to Camnet News, ADEG Executive Director Gideon Musonda expressed concern over the negative impact of misconduct among lawmakers. Referring to the conviction of Lumezi Member of Parliament Munia Zulu, he noted that the absence of parliamentary representation due to MPs' actions disadvantages constituencies and weakens governance. Mr. Msonda further stated that Zulu's conviction would lead to a by-election, forcing the government to divert resources toward an electoral process it aims to minimize. He emphasized the need for responsible leadership to prevent unnecessary financial and administrative strain on the state. On Wednesday, the National Assembly declared the Lumezi parliamentary seat vacant following Zulu's sentencing to 12 months of imprisonment with hard labor.
I've received the information on the pronouncements for the declaration of Lumezi parliamentary seat vacant by the Speaker, with concern. It's unfortunate. You know that the current debate, we are against, having more by-elections. And this by-election that was, caused by what has been, said by the court as, an abrogation of the law in terms of the conduct of an MP. I think it's unfortunate. But going forward, I think we can urge the members of parliament that as they express themselves, as they enjoy the freedom of experience, they don't infringe on other people's right. It's important that we are objective, and when we are sharing information to the public, we need to have that information backed up with facts. It's unfortunate that we have lost a youthful member of parliament. In terms of, just hope that other people will learn from what has happened and avoid unnecessary by-elections.
The Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, EFZ, has expressed concern over the increasing number of advertisements by traditional healers. Speaking in an interview, EFZ Executive Director Bishop Andrew Mwenda has emphasized the importance of addressing people's needs through prayer rather than relying on questionable practices. He notes that traditional healing has become overly commercialized, saying it was originally meant to help people, but in its current form, it has changed significantly. Bishop Mwenda has since called on relevant authorities to look into the matter and ensure that such practices are properly regulated.
Stance of the church on the increasing of advertisements by traditional doctors on radio, social media, and including, of course, the posters we see, banners rather, that we see around, is that this, first and foremost, I want you to know, it actually is speaking to the church a lot much more than just talking about being a Christian nation. I think it's speaking to the church. There's a message in it from to the church that we need to get to a place where we truly do evangelism and meet the needs of the people. It's important that the physical needs of the people are met through prayer and through faith, trusting in God. The local churches, our churches, there needs to do a lot much more than what we are currently doing. It means that the needs of the people are many, even though that's not the stance of the church completely, but that's part of the reason why there's this increase, I think so. But the second thing is that, it's unfortunate that our traditional doctors, whatever they call themselves, have gone now much more commercial than what we ever knew before. Not that I am in support of traditional doctors, no, but that is because it was never like this. It was something that it stood there to help people as we knew before. But as a church, we have always, particularly as evangelicals, we have always been biblical, standing against this issue where people are.
Psychologist Portrin Muzumba has emphasized the need for schools to employ psychologists and counselors to address the growing concern of mass hysteria among learners. Ms. Muzumba says having trained professionals on staff, schools can better assess and address the root causes of mass hysteria, helping learners to manage their emotions and behaviors. She explains that teachers also have a critical role to play in identifying early warning signs of mass hysteria and provide support to learners who may be affected. She adds that the phenomenon is characterized by extreme anxiety or fear in response to a traumatic event and can have significant impact on learners' mental health and well-being.
There are a lot of things that may influence mass hysteria, but a larger part of it is associated to the social factors. It could be social influence, the behavior of others, fears of anxieties, what exactly is leading to the fears. So which cause also for more reason for the teachers in such an environment to be on the lookout for the learners. So one of the things I would really encourage is sensitization and advocacy so that the learners themselves are aware of what happens even to their systems when they're anticipating certain things, certain fears. And other than that, I think it calls for the need of school psychologists in these schools. How many institutions have school counselors to calm down a situation such as this one when it's taking place? So school psychologists would also do a very good job because they'll be there to assess the level of these anxieties and the fears, and also just help the learners bring them back to the realization of what is actually on the ground and what is just likely to happen. So if it's just an anticipation, probably it's just a fear coming as a result of what is likely to happen. And anxiety is extremely characterized by intense fears and phobias. So usually there's a lot of phobias surrounding this. And if all the learners are experiencing this can be highly associated to social factors. What topics are they talking about? What is going on in the school? Is there an anticipated event that is yet to take place that may shake the learners or the people?
Some taxi drivers in Lusaka's North Mid area have expressed concern over the growing use of YANGO, stating that its low pricing model is making it difficult for them to sustain their businesses. Frank Kabwe told Camnet News that YANGO has disrupted the market by offering fares that are low to cover operational costs. He explained that charging 30 kwacha to drive someone to town is not sustainable, especially with the high cost of fuel. Another driver, Arnold Muila, says the rise of YANGO has significantly affected their businesses, as most customers now prefer using the YANGO app instead of booking taxis. He adds that they have no representatives to speak on their behalf, which has made it difficult to voice their concerns, resulting in a decline in their businesses. Here's a report.
In recent years, the use of YANGO and online taxi has gained prominence, with many people opting to use it as opposed to the ordinary taxi, as was the case in the past. This seemingly good development has, however, not been well received among ordinary taxi drivers, who claim that there has been an unfavorable pricing model that is to the disadvantage of ordinary taxi drivers. Since its introduction, taxi drivers have raised various concerns over the development and have advocated for better conditions of service.
And a number of our colleagues have been attacked and they've had their variables like phones, money gotten from them. And this is largely because of the reason that you find when you receive an order at YANGO, you're not given an opportunity, first of all, to know where that client who has ordered you is going. Secondly, you are not given an opportunity to know the price. Not until you start that ride. That's when you know the price. So all those are things that are leading to all what you are seeing now, that drivers are insecure. And what we are asking and demanding is that going forward now, YANGO must be able to provide information such as, number one, where that client is going, number two, the money that is involved, so that me as a driver, I'm given an opportunity to choose whether I can take that trip or I cannot take that trip.
And so today, this journalist caught up with some taxi drivers in Lusaka's North Mid area to find out if their previous grievances have yielded any positive results. One of the drivers, Frank Kabwe, in an interview with Camnet News, says YANGO has disrupted the market by offering fares that are too low to cover operational costs. He explained that charging 30 kwacha to drive someone to town is not sustainable, especially with the high cost of fuel.
Because YANGO yali sangati mukona wala maprize teti mone ne msendi omuntu from huyo kwa mtao naendera nani kanya hapo teti kwa petrol ni shinga ndio tafsiri teti injivisi ndepa so riders tena bwana another mimi kwa YANGO huko kanya na YANGO ndani ndio wanaona moto ndio must pay they are expensive ndio ndendera nani kanya teti kwa mtao petrol is expensive.
Another driver, Arnold Mwila, said the rise of these services have significantly affected their business, as most customers now prefer using the apps instead of booking taxis.
For business, I see YANGO. If it was affected by customer, so to asharafu na vile nabo tusenda pano basi afyafi ni mwasenda form watwala so balabo twale senda ba booking akona wale basenda for 1 week no per month endirango wale basendera abana yali quite a business bonse bali yakuri YANGO so wale ba affected kuri YANGO wato twala so abakulandira ko takwala twajesha so business yali bali bwerera ko bunch.
And Mwandila Mapopo stated that the pricing model is still unfavorable to taxi owners.
You cover from here, this is North Mid, from North Mid to town. You book YANGO or you try right now on your phone. You find that maybe it is giving you 27 kwacha or 30 kwacha, of which it's not even equal to the liter of a petrol, you see? And you cannot even maintain the vehicle. Vehicle maintenance, you know, it's important because when you are moving with this machine on the road, it has to be roadworthy, you know. But how are you going to maintain it? How are you going to service your vehicle when you are getting 30 kwacha pay? You are getting maybe 3 to 4 kilometers, you are getting 30 kwacha. Do you think you can maintain the vehicle in that way? No. The answer is no.
Barbara Mlenga for Camnet News, Lusaka.
The Operation Young Vote OIV has urged the Electoral Commission of Zambia, ECZ, to commence voter education for the upcoming Lumezi constituency by-election. Following the declaration of the Lumezi seat vacant, OIV Executive Director Ges Nyarenda has emphasized the need for ECZ to ensure eligible voters can participate in the electoral process. He stressed the importance of establishing a conflict management team to enable ECZ and police to effectively address potential violence, ensuring a secure environment for voters. He has called for impartiality, calling on the police and ECZ to remain neutral and not to favor any political party.
We know that the Speaker of the National Assembly has finally written to the Electoral Commission of Zambia of the pending by-election in Lumezi constituency. We expect the Electoral Commission of Zambia to begin its groundwork. We expect that the ECZ is going to do everything possible to ensure that as much as it can, the people of Lumezi are aware, and also that voter education is conducted, and those who are eligible in Lumezi should actually cast their vote. We also think that the ECZ must not only engage in voter education but also prepare the conflict management teams, or team as it were, because it's very important and very inevitable, because we know that, like right now in Mtilizi, just a word by-election, we are experiencing violence, and if there can be violence at what level, we expect that there will be violence at constituency level. We don't want violence. This is the ugly face of part of the electoral process that continue to resurface at a time that is actually very critical. So we must be prepared. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. So we need prior preparation so that if the violence erupts, there will be a point where the ECZ and the law enforcers, the police themselves, will be able to ensure that.
We now go to Western Province, where the Permanent Secretary for the province, Mr. Simomo Akapelwa, has assured the people in the locust-affected areas to remain calm as the government strives to control the pests. Mr. Akapelwa says locusts have affected 7 districts: Senanga, Sinjembela, among them Limulunga, Kalabo, and Lukulu, where the locusts are devouring maize, rice fields, and grazing pastures, posing a severe threat to both food security and livestock feed. He further said more than 52,000 hectares of land has been infested by the locusts. In the Mulunga alone, the pests have infested approximately 745 hectares of maize fields and 150 hectares of rice paddies. Here's a report.
Locust swarms are known for feeding on agriculture crops, trees and other plants, causing famine and starvation in communities that depend on their crops for their survival. And in Western Province, locust has affected 7 districts, among them Senanga, Shangombo, Limulunga, Kalabo and Lukulu, where the locusts are devouring maize, rice fields and grazing pastures, posing a severe threat to both food security and livestock feed. Simomo Akapelwa is Western Province Permanent Secretary.
How an attack, an invasion of locusts in the Western Province. We have Limulunga, Lukulu, Nalolo, Senanga, Sioma, Sisheke, and Skongo. So what I can say is Western Province, we have a problem on our hands. But the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and the Disaster Management Mitigation Unit, the Office of the Vice President, they have responded very quickly. They are making the facilities for fighting this pest.
And the Ministry of Agriculture Permanent Secretary Technical Services, John Mulongoti, had this to say.
The damage on the food crops like maize is minimal, but we've got rice, and also considering that we're coming from a drought. So any damage to our maize or any food crop is still serious damage, and we don't want to underplay that aspect. But with the resources we have on the ground and the other resources which is coming, we are very confident that we are going to overcome this.
Mino Ayabo Chimbi is International Red Locust Control Officer.
We surveyed 27,500 hectares, and we've marked the area which is we are estimating to be 16,900. That's so far. The infestation in some areas more than what we have written in previous, that's 20 to 30. It's now becoming even 50 locusts per square meter. So it's a high infestation. It's a high infestation.
More than 52,000 hectares of land has been infested by the locust in Rumunga alone. The pests have infested approximately 745 hectares of maize field and 150 hectares of rice paddy. Musiabo Kavira, Camnet News in Mungu District, Western Province.
Real Estate Investment Zambia says the country in the last few years recorded a decline in quality residential rentals across the country. Speaking at the ZAMRIU Real Estate Conference, Real Estate Investment Zambia Chief Executive Officer Campbell Banda says due to the influx of expatriates few years ago, most property owners were able to get good rentals rates across the country. Mr. Banda says of late, the country has had fewer expatriates, with most of them owning properties. He says real estate has potential to thrive, but financing remains a challenge as quality properties demand colossal capital.
As high as $3,000 to about $1,000, depending on the quality of the tenants that you're looking at and depending on the quality of the build. But that boom, what we call a property boom, is that it lasted at a point in time. I think there was a time when there was a fewer expatriates that were getting in the country, and ideally every person that wants to get into real estate and wants to produce residentials is targeting the expatriates, because obviously they pay a much higher rental, and that's a rental that you want for your return on your investment as quickly as possible. Properties is a long-term game, so the quicker you get your return on your investment, the better for you. So if you produce something that is of good quality and it attracts the right type of tenants, obviously you're going to get your return on investment much quicker for you to continue with your expansion in terms of your property production. So we saw a boom that was there during that time where rentals were quite high, and that boom unfortunately busted when we saw fewer expatriates coming into the country, a lot more.
So it is 23 years ago, so we've been able to see the changes over that time. I think what's happened is we've seen a fantastic growth in different sectors. So retail, shopping centres has grown, offices have grown, residential continues to grow. But now I think we've had more of a consolidation in the last couple of years. So everybody's having to adjust to a tougher period in the property market. But as they do that, they're then setting themselves for the next 5 or 10 years. And I think there are new opportunities, not only shopping centres in Lusaka or outside, but around the country, areas that are opening up with infrastructure in different parts of Zambia. We see some of the border posts opening up, more travel. Obviously, we're land linked to 8 countries around us. So with the new roads, such as the Lusaka to Ndola dual carriageway, along that road.
We now take our first set of commercials, but do join us for international news when we come back. Stay tuned. Join us this Friday on The Ministry. Host Bishop Billy Lubansa from Flaming Fire Ministries, Kabwe. Guest Apostle Derek Mutungu. Topic: Who bewitched Africa and how can it really be free? Time 20-45 hours. Only on Camnet TV.
Get all the latest updates in court news only on Camnet TV. We take you and make you feel part of the court sessions through our in-depth coverage of the adjudication process. Get informed on those who have been arrested, delayed and denied the police bond or bail victims, persons taking plea, court adjournments, verdicts, and those administration issues in the judiciary. You can also follow and give us a like on our social media platforms, Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Are you looking for a reliable and efficient courier company with international standards? Then let UBZ Courier, your trusted partner in swift and secure deliveries, be your ultimate choice. Whether it's a small package or a hefty consignment, UBZ Courier handles it all, locally and internationally. Our modern call center ensures personalized attention for every client. For seamless deliveries within Zambia and beyond, trust UBZ Courier. Call us now on +260 763 062 680 or visit us at plot number 15 Mwapona Road, Woodland, Lusaka, Zambia. UBZ Courier, a world-class brand that can be trusted.
Enjoy the benefits of an instant loan with us ranging from 1,000 kwacha to 750,000 kwacha paid express once collateral is viewed, valued and verified. Call us on 0763 595 359 or 0779 432 993. Classified Financial Express, here as your financial friend.
Potatoes, the unsung heroes of flavor. From crispy chips to creamy mash, potatoes are the versatile superstars of your kitchen. Grown with love by our dedicated workforce drawn from around the community of Palabana. Savenda Farm's commitment is to see to it that we have potatoes that are grown right, healthy, big and tasty. For that quick fix or big celebration or that meal that brings family together, top chefs rely on the Savenda potato to create culinary masterpieces. And for others, it's that icebreaker to a delightful conversation. So, embrace the magic of Savenda potatoes. They're not just a side dish, they're the heart and soul of your kitchen. Savenda, save nations, develop Africa.
From time immemorial, we have had different types of lighting options, from those that can burn down our investments in minutes to those that dig holes in our pockets due to constant replacement and huge consumption of our ZESCO units. Savenda Electric introduces the new and advanced electric bulb with cutting-edge technology of LED that has low power consumption, gives out bright white light, and lasts up to 25,000 hours. Savenda Electric manufactures all types of LED light, like plastic LED fluorescent tubes, down lights, ceiling lights, outdoor fittings, and solar street lights made to customer specifications. Let's live on the bright side of life by choosing the wide range of Savenda electric lighting solutions that are available in all leading stores and supermarkets countrywide. For orders, call 0962 642 490 or email jnbunda@savenda.com or pchabula@savenda.com.
Welcome back to the Camnet TV News Desk, and now in international news. The government of Zimbabwe has announced an initial compensation of $3 million US for white farmers whose properties were taken down under a contentious government initiative over 20 years ago. The farmers had the first disbursement under a 2020 compensation agreement established between the government and local white farmers, in which Zimbabwe pledged to pay a total of $3.5 billion US for the confiscated farmland. Between 2000 and 2001, thousands of white farmers were forcibly removed from their land, often through violent means. While the land seizures aim to rectify historical injustices from the colonial period, they ultimately contributed to the nation's economic downturn and strained relations with Western countries. Now here's a roundup of international news.
From escaping the death row in Congo to facing fresh coup charges in the US,
The Justice Department said Wednesday that these American men repatriated from Congo were charged with taking part in an attempt to remove the government in Kinshasa. The men had been sentenced to death by a Congolese court. The punishment was later commuted to life imprisonment. Their repatriation followed talks between a White House envoy and the Congolese president. Congolese authorities want to reach a minerals deal with Washington in exchange for security support. Among the three Americans is 22-year-old Marcel Malanga, son of opposition figure Christian Malanga, who was killed during the botched coup. Prosecutors say the goal of the plot was to establish a new government known as New Zaire and install Christian Malanga as its president. A total of 37 people were sentenced to death in the purported coup attempt, also including a Belgian, Briton and Canadian.
The government of Zimbabwe has announced an initial payment of $3 million for white farmers whose properties were taken under a controversial initiative over 20 years ago. This is the first payment under the 2020 compensation agreement, where Zimbabwe promised to pay a total of $3.5 billion for the confiscated farmland. The payment covers the first 378 farms out of 740 approved for compensation and is 1% of the overall $311 million allocated for the initial payments. In 2000, then President Robert Mugabe supported land invasions by government forces and vigilante groups, resulting in economic problems and strained relations with Western nations, attracting global criticism. President Emerson Mnangagwa, who took over after Mugabe's coup in 2017, is trying to restore ties with Western countries.
Gabon will head to the polls for the presidential election this Saturday, the first of its kind since the 2023 coup that ousted long-term ruler Ali Bongo from power. Current interim president and leader of the coup against Bongo, Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, is widely expected to win. The problem is the high cost of living. And if the president, the future president, can take a particular look at food prices, and not only food prices but also other aspects of daily life, that will be a good thing for us. Nguema's main challenger is Bongo's former Prime Minister Alain-Claude Billy-Bizet, who has promised to reorganize public finances, create jobs and reduce dependency on former colonial ruler France. Now that we're going to have a new regime, we're waiting for the new president. He has to keep all of his promises. Because it's good to make promises, but he has to keep them. He knows that the Gabonese people need roads and healthcare. According to some analysts, the election could however mark less of a break with the times under the Bongo dynasty's rule than it initially pretended to. The campaigns of the other 7 candidates have been subdued compared to Oligui Nguema's, and the interim president has received support from almost all sides of the political landscape. The goal was not to end a system, the goal was to end a regime. So Ali Bongo had a regime. His regime, his government, is the young team. The coup that took place did not have the goal of ending the PDG dynasty. This is the reason why, after having taken Ali Bongo and his regime out, you realize that we have witnessed a massive return of PDG supporters.
Vous vous rendez compte que nous avons assisté à un retour massif des PDGistes.
Bongo's political party, the Gabonese Democratic Party, known by its French acronym PDG, announced its support for Oligui Nguema last week.
And that international news item brings us to the end of this edition of Camnet TV Main News. But before we go, let's take a look at stories that made headlines. NAWAKWI'S body jets in, burial scheduled for Friday. Let's trade among ourselves to develop, HH tells African countries. YANGO conditions of service still unsustainable, taxi drivers cry out. In international news, first payments made to white farmers affected by land reforms in Zimbabwe. We now look at the Camnet verse for the day, coming from the book of John, chapter 3 and verse 27. It reads, John answered and said, a man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. We end the reading and we end the main news on Camnet TV. But dear viewer, like always, do remember that Camnet TV is not just another channel. Now, on behalf of the entire production team, I'm Tapelo Joe Smarter. Good evening and God bless.
Join us this Friday on the ministry. Host Bishop Billy Lubansa from Flaming Fire Ministries, Kabwe. Guest Apostle Derek Mutungu. Topic: who bewitched Africa and how can it really be free? Time 20:45 hours. Only on Camnet TV.